Okay, hi guys, and welcome to a very special show indeed. I'm trying to contain myself, but yeah, it's finally here. 2 years in the making. There it is, the Rangemaster. Oh my God, look at that. All right, I need to calm down. Now, of course, I must stress, this is a presentation, not a full review, because of course I can't review my own watch. It completely negates the whole point of a review. So I have selected 4 channels that I absolutely adore, and I'll talk about that later towards the end of the video. But what I can talk about is the process, the behind the scenes, all the ups and downs of making this a reality. So let's get into it. As many of you know by now, every year I like to collaborate with a brand or two to co-design a watch. Last year I had the honor of helping bringing back the legendary Handheart 417 ES in the period correct 39mm size, just like the 1950s original, famously worn by Steve McQueen of course, and something of a grail watch. And then on top of that was the culmination of 3 years of co-designing the Safari by one of the best micro brands in the world, Laurier. I want to be abundantly clear that I only do this once or twice a year, because firstly, I don't want my channel to become just about my own watches, and at the end of the day, I still am a watch enthusiast and collector sharing my journey, and that's what it will always be about. There are also brands that I've designed watches for privately that you will never see on the channel, and who knows, you might even be wearing one and not even know it. Now, the second reason I don't do that many watches a year is purely the finances involved. Even in a watch like this, we're talking 6 figures minimum of investment. It's a big gamble. And also, I don't want to, a bit like Omega and the Speedmaster, you know, I don't want to devalue the Urban Gentry and all the watches I've put out. I want each one to have just as much effort and love and passion and time spent on them. The minimum is a year and a half, I would say. So a lot of blood, sweat, tears, investment, fortitude, courage, you name it. When working with a brand, there is always different challenges, parameters of what you can and can't do. For example, with the Handheart 417 ES being such a historic and iconic watch, it was only possible to make slight tweaks in order to make the Red Lion edition different from the non-LE version that subsequently followed. This was obviously to protect this heritage brand and the horological legacy of this very important military chronograph. With the Laurier, what started as one thing ended up as something entirely different, after almost restarting from scratch a year into the project. However, with the Islander, the challenge was completely different and unlike anything that I had ever worked on before. The goal was ultimately to make the most affordable do-it-all watch. Now that sounds very easy to say, but in an already saturated market, how do we achieve this? Now let's rewind 2 years to the beginning of, well, lockdown, the pandemic, all of that stuff. Marc was actually here recording. We started a new series, our Watch Talk episodes. He was here literally after a couple of days leaving the war room. The lockdowns started and we had to continue remotely. The series, it was kind of like a video podcast, if you will, really got its own little following, and we just love doing them. You know, picking a subject, talking for a couple of hours, and then I edit it down as much as I can. So we wanted to commemorate that with a watch. By this time, Marc's Islander brand had evolved from initially affordable modded watches based on mainly Seiko designs that were discontinued or had become overly expensive into more original designs. Combined with his highly revered reputation for customer service and professionalism, it was a logical fit. Having already co-designed mainly divers with the 7 watches previously I had worked on for various other brands, I knew it wasn't going to be a diver. But then I became kind of stuck for ideas. But that was until one evening after work on a cold winter's day in early 2021, I was playing one of my favourite video games, the remastered classic Command & Conquer. I became obsessed with trying to imagine what kind of watch the GDI soldiers would wear in the game. This immediately made me think of the Tudor North flag, with its retro, slightly futuristic aesthetic, much like the setting of the computer game itself. But the problem with the now discontinued North flag, it was simply too tool-tastic and utilitarian to be as versatile as a more classical Explorer, the ultimate do-it-all watch in my opinion. This inevitably brought me back to a watch I once owned before my Rolex Explorer, a vintage Tudor Prince date, reference 74000 with a Ranger dial. So the seed was planted, and I didn't want to make just a strict homage. I kind of, I learned a lot by reviewing Dan Henry's watches and how he masterfully takes elements, but I didn't want it to be vintage inspired this time. I wanted something kind of from the future, a little bit like in sci-fi films like Total Recall or I don't know, Starship Troopers. It's that near future. So we take something familiar, but we make that twist, make it a little bit more modernist, and that's really what I wanted to do here. And obviously take elements from watches that both me and Marc own and love to make it, more ours, so to speak, as well. The biggest issue was finding the right case and size. The solution was something based on the Saab 033, a watch that had become synonymous with my channel. I still own one, in fact, although admittedly it has migrated into my wife's collection, but I still get to borrow it from time to time. This Capolavoro was a 38mm size that was a real crowd pleaser. But how do we improve it? I decided to get rid of the display back. This allowed us to shave off some height, and as a result making it thinner than the Saab, at a very cuff-friendly and impressive 10mm of slenderness. We added a screw-down crown to help maintain its 100-meter water resistance, and changed the bezel top to brushed. This was always something that bugged me about the Saab and its scratch magnet bezel. The subtle beveling and handsome stepped case was very evocative of a Grand Seiko, so we kept it, in order to give it a little bit of restrained, dressy refinement. The brushed bracelet, screwed links, and solid negative end links are all designed to ensure that it does not protrude past your wrist, along with a milled clasp and some micro adjustments. I almost decided for a Jubilee, but I wanted to go with this more understated look, as I think it really works with one of my favorite watches, the Rolex Explorer, of course. Most often, the design is down to that dial. Not always, but a lot of it is. So it had to be right. And this took a long time of, changing tiny bits here. This is what makes a project like this, even for a relatively simple three-hander, take so long. 95% of the, this is not a real statistic, 95% sounds very, precise. 95.6% of watches that are the trademark Urban Gentry phrase, strap monsters, they're usually monochromatic. So I had to go with this color scheme. Tiny little pops of red, Pop this on a Wrist County Watch Club or something from Holborn, anything from Holborn's, and I doubt very much there's any strap that's not going to work on it. So the true do-it-all, super versatile strap monster, there you go. The 24-hour chapter ring and font styling was in fact inspired by Marc's very own Breitling Aerospace. This iconic AnyDigi pilot's watch had the appropriate quality I was looking for to give it a more modern look. The result very much looks like what I would imagine a space dweller would look like, had Rolex pursued that name change after that disastrous failed marketing campaign in Japan, which I've discussed in many Rolex Explorer videos. By moving the military time off the dial, like in conventional field watches, and to the periphery, this also cleans up the main central space but still allowing us to retain that function. You might even notice the dark stone grey of that chapter ring. That is also a little nod to the aerospace, further blending this mix of watch genres. So that was the point of deliberately including a pilot's watch, not just field watches. Obviously, legibility was of supreme importance, so BGW9 was selected for the luminescence, not just for all the Ranger hands, but also for the highly effective Explorer numeral layout, which in my opinion remains the best for orientation in low light. With no date, there's nothing to interrupt the pleasing balance, and at a quick glance you can instantly tell hours from minutes and seconds via the different shaped hands, and primarily that arrowhead shape. I always felt it was a very underrated handset, Tudor's answer to Rolex's Mercedes hands, if you will. So about a year into the project, what happens? Yeah, Tudor put out a new Ranger, and I'm like, oh my god, let's look at the Tudor. Thankfully they did it a bit too big, in my opinion. Also, it was a bit of an uninspired design. It's a lovely watch, but it doesn't really do anything new. Russell, a mad watch collector, very astutely pointed out that mismatch of colors, the loomed hands to the dial and this kind of thing. So I wasn't concerned. You know, I don't care what people think. If they want to think it's a homage to a watch that we didn't even know was going to be designed, so be it. They don't know the full story or whatever. We decided, you know what, let's carry on. While Tudors cost a pretty penny, I wanted to keep this inexpensive as possible, but still with modern materials like the sapphire glass and AR coating on the inside. An aspect I do love about my vintage Tudors was being affordable to maintain with their rock-solid ETA calibers over the more expensive later in-house movements. So we went with the well-proven Miyota and its higher 28,800 vibrations per hour beat rate. We also moved the paddle of the seconds hand further outwards to increase its precision, and then a gap around the 12 o'clock to assist with hacking and synchronization. With only 500 made, and then that's it forever, we wanted to protect its collectability and value. Something finally worthy of sporting the protector of horology, the Gentry Lion, and the symbol of infinite time always moving forward, with the Islander logo both engraved on the back. Naturally, we took it a step further. We are donating 10% of all the revenue generated from the sales to charity. As this is a military-inspired watch, most likely it will be Wounded Warriors, but we have yet to decide the exact charity, so maybe several even. I really do feel it's the honourable thing to do, and so I'll keep you posted on what charity we finally decide on. As you would imagine, I'm chuffed to bits, right? The kippers and niggers. I'm not going to say pure class just yet. I have selected 4 channels that I deeply respect and I watch myself and enjoy, all with their very unique styles. We have Miguel from SoCal Watch Reviews, amazing channel over there on the West Coast. And then a little bit closer to home, we have Elizabeth Grant doing equally amazing stuff. And we cannot leave out Russell, the mad, the insane watch collector. Always makes me laugh. And then finally, per tutti i miei italiani, ho scelto Giacomo o Jack at Into the Limelight. Lui è bravissimo, un canale che mi piace tantissimo, molto simpatico. So I'll leave a link to all of those in the description. Of course, I mean, you know, I've got half of my family in Italy. I can never forget them. So shout out to all my Italian gentry out there. That's it. Thank you to Mark for making it all possible. Also my friend John for helping film some of the content. The whole Urban Gentry team, bravo to all of you. So this watch really is to you. And yeah, just amazing. So onwards and upwards, leave your comments down below. Don't forget to like this video if you want to support the channel. And I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Ciao.